to Backpacker Radio, presented by The Trek. Today is November 27th, Turtle Adoption Day.
Okay.
Did you have a turtle growing up?
No. I
sure
did
about
try.
that?
Well, at our upstate house, it's like on a bunch of woods. And there's ponds. So I did find a baby turtle in a puddle, and I did bring it home. And that was stopped very quickly as soon as my dad found out.
Conversely, I did have a pet turtle. I was obsessed with turtles. The thing was so depressed. You take it out of its cage, it wouldn't move. It hated everything. And then one day I took it over to my friend's house who had a pond, and I took it out just to here's a natural environment that might be appealing to you. Thing sprinted at the speed of light into the pond and never saw it again.
I love that you were a kid who brought your pet turtle to your friends' houses for
Something
playdates.
in my DNA knew that I needed to release that thing back to its rightful home. I'm your co-host, Zach Badger Davis. Sitting to my right is...
Hi, I'm Juliana Chaunce, a.k.a. Chaunce.
Just a couple of reminders before we get to today's awesome interview. One is we have a new dedicated website, and without having to go through the lengthy process of going to the direct URL, you can just go to backpackerradio.com. The website's awesome. It's got all of the episodes included on it. You can get to our mailbag feature if you want to send us some stuff. You can see our merchandise. What else do we have, Chaunce? Our videos.
You can leave us a voicemail. You can watch our videos on YouTube. You can see all of our show notes and our past catalog of episodes. You can write us an email. You can submit a poop story. You can nominate a guest. It's basically got everything on there that you might need. You can find all our socials linked. So if you don't know how to open up one of your social apps on your own, you could go there and click one of the buttons and it'll take you there. Yeah.
If you like Backpacker Radio, you will be entertained and informed in all capacities. Also, Patreon, if you want to support the podcast and or get some additional content. We release a new episode on the first Wednesday of every month. For December's episode, coming up here in a few days, we're actually doing a Q&A with our Patreon supporters. We're doing some random calls. I actually just posted this through our Patreon page just a few minutes ago. We've already got a handful of responses, so... some person cited having a standout pee story. We haven't done any fun pee stories.
Ooh, okay. I'm excited.
Yeah. So I think we used to do this way back in the day. It was more of a drunk tilt. I'm not sure how inebriated we'll be this time around. Maybe a Coors Light or two. But
I think the last one of these we did was in your old house, and it never made air. Do you remember that one?
Yes, I do. It got pretty off the rails. But this one will
make... no fault of our own.
No, for once. Yeah, this one will make the light of day. So if you want to chat with Chaunce and I and have our conversation be part of the podcast, head on over to patreon.com/backpackerradio. And last but not least, if you're listening to this podcast on time, and I hope you are, we have our Holiday Hiker Meetup Palooza Extravaganza coming up on December 1st at Improper City in Denver.
Yes, we are doing it with the CDTC. Mara will be here. Rachel will be here. And we are going to be giving away a bunch of fun things in a raffle. And all of the money raised is going to the CDTC. So if you want to go into the new year with some good karma, make Santa, extra incentivized to leave something nice under the tree for you, you can come support the CDTC and get in some hiker hangs before you head home for the holidays.
We've got gift cards from Catabatic. We just got some stuff from Sea Tug, Chicken Tramper Ultralight gear. We've got
some Darn Toughs.
lot of elements.
And it keeps coming.
Yeah, I feel like every time I come home, there's a new thing of elements. So,
I was cracking up today because I got to the top of the stairs and I looked down and there was a box, and I just knew before I even saw the box what it was.
It's funny because I think you get the stuff before I do. You're closer to a distribution center, I imagine. So I learn about all this stuff that I'm going to get via your text messages. So
did you see what they sent today?
It looked like some sort of a kettle.
Yeah, it's for the ones that you have to enjoy hot.
Yeah.
So they have this chocolate, peppermint, chocolate mochas.
Those bastards know how to get a free ad.
Yeah. Well, I was jumping up and down because I liked the kettle.
Yeah, I shouldn't call them bastards. We're big fans of the product, but
Zach.
Yeah. No, shout out to Element. They've been awesome. Okay, let's not beat around the bush anymore. Let's get to today's interview. Very excited for this one. Had a chance to chat for a few minutes before we hit the button here. None other than Trek blogger Ruth Morley, who recently completed the Colorado Trail at the age of 70. In addition to the Colorado Trail, Ruth has hiked the GR5 in Europe, the entire AT over 4 summers, half the Buckeye Trail, a third of the Florida Trail so far. She does all this on a completely plant-based diet, dehydrating all her own food free of animal products with no added salt, oil, or sugars. We'll learn all about that, and maybe she can convince us to clean up our diet a bit. Probably not, though. Ruth, thank you so much for joining us here on Backpacker Radio.
It is so fun to be here. This is a kind of format I've never been in before, and just so great just to be speaking with you in person.
Likewise. Yeah, no, you've been an active contributor on the website for a number of years now, so it's awesome to have you here in person, and your posts are always very spirited, so I imagine this conversation will be similar to that. Let's start off. Just let us know how you originally got interested in the outdoors.
Okay. I lived 2 very formative years as a child in early grade school in Creede, Colorado, the little darling mining town.
The cutoff for the CDT hikers.
Yes. Or a long hike for the Colorado Trail hiker who really wants to go there. And my dad was superintendent of schools there. It was just of school. And it was just a wonderful place to be a kid. You could go out and play, and just didn't play in the mountains much because they basically just go up. But it was great. So that, I think, right there made me fall in love with the mountains. Lived on the prairie after that, and then moved further east. And I've just always loved nature a lot. But in my 20s, I started running. And by the time I started running marathons in my 40s and ran for about 17 years I just love long distances, and I don't like running on treadmills. It has to be outside. It was mostly on pavement, though. I'm not a huge fan of trail running. I like to hike on trails. And so, yeah, by the time I was done with my running career, which I gave up because the pavement started being too hard for me, I've run 46 marathons of 26.2,
Wow.
6 ultras.
And you said you started in your 40s?
Yeah,
That's wild. The
I
idea
know.
of starting the marathon path
I know.
at this age for me, I'm not quite 40, seems very intimidating.
The reason my husband was with Procter & Gamble, headquartered in Cincinnati, where I live, and we chose to go overseas with him. We actively sought it out. We consider ourselves stimulus junkies. We love new experiences and cultures. And I'd never been overseas, but when our kids were in grade school, we moved to Kobe, Japan, and stayed 10 years there, which is very unusual for a corporate move. Usually it's 2 or 3 years, but I taught at the international school. We were right by mountains. I hiked there. I ran at shorter distances. And I'm trying to think, while we were there as a family, we climbed Fuji. And that was really interesting. You start about 2/3 of the way up the mountain. The bus takes you that far, and then you hike in the afternoon, spend the night in a hut with other people. You're all laying on a wooden platform, and everybody, it's like sausages on at a gas station, just turning. And so we all turn at the same time, and then you finish the next morning. But I was outdoors then. Next place was Caracas, Venezuela. Hiked in the Andes there a lot, kept running, but I was running now, getting into the longer distances because I've done the marathons. I've also done 6 ultra marathons, got up to 100K, 2 of them. One of them, 85K, was in South Africa. It's called Comrades, and it was that was really great. That was all on pavement. And then our third. Here's where I moved into the mountains more even. Our third overseas assignment, or choice really, was with Bayer Pharmaceutical, and we lived in Evian, France, where they bottle the water that comes straight out of the Alps, and I couldn't work, darn it. And so my husband would go off to work, and I would take the dogs and go hike in the mountains, and that's when I really fell in love with it. And I just kind of got tired of all the aches and pains, which I attributed to all the running, and eventually just had to hang up my shoes for that. Yeah. But I discovered with the backpacking, I could do it at my own pace. I was not worried about what's my time per mile and et cetera. It's just having a good time.
Yeah.
And just fell in love with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is such a weird tangent, but it was too interesting from our conversation to let it pass up and dissolve.
Good.
Tell me about the Mediocre Golfers Association.
Okay. Oh, I love it. I was hoping you'd mention it. We were talking about my son. You asked where I was. I from here in Denver, here in Golden. I'm going to go on to Las Vegas, where our son is hosting a big golf tournament for his association. He started about 13, 15 years ago. It's called the Mediocre Golf Association. He and a friend had been playing golf, and they're just mediocre. I think they're better than mediocre. But they said, why isn't there a national tournament system for just mediocre golfers like the PGA? And they said, we should start the MGA, the Mediocre Golf Association. And so they have two mottos. One is we take our golf seriously, but not ourselves. And the other is, pardon my French, we suck. And so they have 9 tournaments throughout the year, and the names of the tournaments reflect on the names of PGA. Instead of Pebble Beach, they have Rebel Beach. Instead of the Masters tournament, they have the Bastards tournament. And it's just fun. They just have a good time, but they really do try, as they say in the South, bless their hearts, meaning they really are not that great. So, but at the end of the year, in November, you're into the season, those that are best in each chapter, and he's got chapters in Canada, Australia, and the U.S. He's got, I think, about 1,500 members. I'm not sure. It's pretty good.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they qualify to compete with the others in Las Vegas, and he rents 2 golf courses for 2 days, the complete golf courses, and the guys in the tournaments who qualified are at the better golf course, and they're really trying hard. Then at the other golf course, where I am going to just kind of be like a Gal Friday and just kind of laugh at all their jokes and everything, and put them in the bus when they're drunk at the end of the day, that's where the ones that are the wannabes go. They go just for the fun of it, and if they do well at that, then the next year they can compete. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. There's chapters all over the U.S. My husband has run, for the 12 years, I guess, the Cincinnati chapter. I think there's one here in Denver. I'm sure there is.
Yeah, I'm going to have to look into that.
So it's really fun.
It sounds like a blast.
Yeah.
How do you know how do they decide who's too good to be mediocre?
Good point. And I don't know golf, but there is some kind of scoring system. Like our son has gotten too good. So if you get under, I'll just say 90 for a game, I don't know, a round, not a game, a round. You have to add penalty points to your score. Yeah, so they level it out.
It's like a reverse
more.
handicap sort of.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So golf operates on a handicap system. You're supposed to file your score with an official thing, and then you keep a handicap based on how many strokes on average you are over par. So. And
they do put it on the website, and it's all he's got it really professional. It's just that they have a good time.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
And before we move on from your son, he's a professional race car driver.
He is. I love it. My husband loves it that he has carved out his own career. He got a business degree from Ohio State, and he uses it. He fell in love with go-karting when we lived in Japan. He was a middle school boy with lots of energy, and that gave him a way to use it constructively instead of hurting his mother's feelings. And so they bought a go-kart, and they would race at a track there in Japan. And when we moved back to the U.S., we brought the go-kart with us because P&G paid shipping. And he started racing around the U.S. With my husband as the mechanic. And then once he got later in high school, he really wanted to pursue it. And so, I think when he was in college, and we paid for him to go to Skip Barber Racing School. Skip Barber was a former professional racer. And we considered we were investing in his master's degree, basically. And really, it paid off. He's good friends with several people who've raced at Indianapolis. And so he races with a friend who can afford to buy the race car. It's a souped-up Audi that's never meant for the streets. And at Daytona 500 or whatever it's called, Daytona 100, when is that? In January. On Saturday, the big race happens, or Sunday maybe. On Saturday, John's race happens. And this year they won.
Wow.
And it's the two, in this case, it was a 2-hour race, I believe, and one racer does 1 hour and the partner does the last hour. And John always gets the end and he brings it in. Huh. So very exciting. And then he also coaches other people. It's never high level like Indy 500, but it's pretty good stuff.
Yeah.
And so he coaches people privately.
What a fascinating
Isn't it
life
wonderful?
your son leads. Yeah, that's
and
very
our
cool.
daughter loves her life. She's we'll say traditional doctor's wife who loves tennis and lives in Nashville. And they've both found their niche.
Kudos
and we're
to
happy
you
for 'em.
raising 2 awesome kids.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk some hiking.
Let's do that.
So you mentioned that you obviously lived all over the globe, but one of the hikes that I would really like to drill into, because I don't think we've talked about this at all, or if we have, not in any real depth, is the GR5.
Yeah.
Give us the intro to this, and then we'll dive down the appropriate rabbit holes from there.
Okay, yeah. This GR is initials for Grande Randonnée in French, which my interpretation of that is big hike, big walk. And there's GRs all over Europe, not just in France. But the one, we were living in Evian, as I said, where they bottled the water right on the shores of Lake Geneva. It was bliss. I didn't know paradise existed, and we had 6 years there. It was fantastic. And people said, since you run marathons, you should do the GR5. Well, hiking over the Alps has nothing to do with marathons if you're used to just doing pavement, just road runs. But anyway, I looked into it, and it's a trail that is 1,500 miles long. And if people thru-hike it, they aren't as big into that as we are here with the Triple Crown. But it starts in the Netherlands on the North Sea, and it goes through the Netherlands, Belgium, Luxembourg, a bit of Switzerland, and the full length of France, and ends on the Mediterranean at Nice. And it's just beautiful. It's flat up in the north, and then you have gentle mountains in Luxembourg and northern France, and then you've got the Alps from Lake Geneva, which is kind of east central France. It's nothing but the Alps. It's like doing the Colorado Trail. You're always in the mountains. It's stunning. And so we lived right by the Alps section. So I said, well, I'm just going to do the southern third, the 500 miles. And I did it. I tore my meniscus. I came off injured, but I got it done. It was just wonderful. And I hiked alone. My husband likes to join me the first 4 or 5 days of hikes. He enjoys it, but as he says, he likes 4 days, I like 4 weeks. I don't like 4 months. I'm not a thru-hiker that long.
Yeah.
It's just not fun for me. So I did the Alp portion, and then 2 years later I said, well, northern France awaits. And so I went up to Luxembourg City, which was right up by the border, and came down so I had done all of France. And then we moved back to the U.S., and after about 3 years I said, Belgium and Luxembourg and Holland await me. And so I came and finished those. And I did a flip-flop, basically, and finished up on the North Sea. Again injured. Came home, another torn meniscus. I must be doing something wrong. But it was life-changing.
Did they scrape your meniscus? Did they repair it?
They weren't into repairing it. Any times I've had it, I've had 3 meniscus surgeries, 2 on one and 1 on the other, obviously. Because it takes so long for meniscus, there's not a good blood flow.
Yeah.
And so they just but I always tell the doctors, just the bare minimum, please.
Yeah.
And so far, so good.
Yeah. Okay, that's reassuring, because I'm missing meniscus in both of my knees.
Yeah.
So you're still out here crushing it in your 70s.
Thanks God to KT tape.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I just found how to wrap it, and it's just fine.
Yeah.
So tell us about, on the GR5, I guess make it less mysterious for someone hiking if they're leaving from the U.S. to go hike it. Like, do you need visas? Where do you sleep? The classic questions that you would ask for a trail if you don't know about it.
I'm sure you would need visas. I think it's just a 3-month visa is what you could get, and people could do that. Some people.
Would you get it for France, or is it like the EU?
I would guess it'd be the EU. The Switzerland bit, they're not in the EU, but no one ever checks in the middle. It would only be coming in by airplane. I mean, They don't care about borders there so much. I mean, even when you drive across the border, often they'll just kind of, if you're within the EU. A good way to get your feet wet with it is the Tour de Mont Blanc, which I'm going to do in the summer of 25. And that's 10 days. I think it's about 100 miles, but it's surprisingly, I mean, those are that's the biggest mountain I think in France for sure. And you're going around it, and you go through mostly France and also Switzerland and also Italy. And I walked on part of it with the GR5, and that's a great way just to get your feet on the ground and, do it as a separate, like a shakedown, but very worthy shakedown. And there's hostels along the way in the Alps. They're just wonderful. Some are bunks. Sometimes there's private rooms available. The cool thing is you're sitting at a long wooden table, and you'll hear 4 different languages, 5 different languages going. It's so cool. Kind of like that movie Martin Sheen was in, The Path. What's it called? The Way?
The Way, yeah.
The Way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was sitting, I remember his son was sitting there just soaking it up. But just as in Maine, in Switzerland, if you said the word switchback, they'd say, "What's that?" Yeah. It's not in their dictionaries.
Yeah, it's about 100 miles, and those are very slow miles,
yes.
to my understanding.
Yes,
yeah.
And you also have variants that you can do for more kick, more fun, climbing ladders bolted into rock, and however, you can make it your own.
Yeah.
But the hostels are wonderful. I follow, there's a Facebook site for Tour de Mont Blanc Thru-Hike, and I follow it since in a year and a half, I want to do it. And you don't need you can camp. You can, and it gives people freedom. Right now, almost all the hostels are booked for next summer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you have to plan way in advance. But there are a lot of tour companies that will do that for you, and so they'll shift it around. They find out what your priorities are. Hostels are so much fun there, just really fun. I think they sometimes allow people to camp on their grounds as well, like after 5 p.m. and get out by 7 a.m. or something. But you're almost always going through ski towns or something, so you can buy things as you go. And a lot of people take a 0 day in, I think it's called Courmayeur in Italy. I think it is. I'm not sure. I haven't done that part. And they take a 0. Sometimes you have to get a hotel. But if you camp, go lightweight, and then you kind of just call the shots how far you want to go, and you don't have to book anything. Most people fly into Geneva. That's the closest, Geneva, Switzerland, and there's a bus that gets you to Chamonix. It's spelled Chamonix.
Talking about GR5 or the
that
the
is
Tour de Mont Blanc right
still
now?
Tour de Mont Blanc.
Okay.
GR5. I think it would be nice to fly into wherever is closest to Hoek van Holland. That's the northernmost point, northwesternmost point, Hoek van Holland. And that's right on the English Channel. And that's where you would start, and it would be just pancake flat. And Brussels or Belgium, it starts getting gently hilly. And great guidebooks, Cicerone guides. I think those are British. Great. But really, the Facebook site, you can ask anything, just like for Colorado Trail and all the others. I didn't know about that when I was doing the AT, about Facebook sites, pages, and those really help.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you did the GR5 in 3 different sections. Did you have a favorite of the 3?
The Alps. Yeah, it just blew my mind. It's not, I mean, it's so populated in Europe. You'd see some sheep, wild sheep maybe. You'd walk through flocks of sheep with real shepherds there with their sticks, and their dogs. It's so cool. But yeah, you're never terribly far from civilization. I don't mind that. I love to hike alone, but I really love to talk. So it was nice to see people in towns and at the hostels.
What's the total mileage for the GR5?
Yeah, 1,500.
Okay.
It's 500 miles per section, the way that I did it. From Lake Geneva to Nice, it's 500 miles. And yeah, basically, yeah, that's kind of how it went. I think Luxembourg City was, if you started at Hoek van Holland, then you would stop, if you wanted to do it in sections. Luxembourg City would be about 500 miles, and then you'd be at 1,000 when you'd get to Geneva area. So, Lake Geneva.
So what's that northern section like? Because you mentioned that it was flatter compared to the other parts, and it looks like it goes through some pretty dense populated areas.
Yes.
So what's the setup like? Is it hiking?
Well,
is it walking?
For me, when I was going north, doing that from Luxembourg City north, halfway through, my trail runners basically I blew a tire. I mean, no more support. And I hadn't used trail runners before. I'd used hiking boots before. I didn't know they needed to be new. So I had old ones and I'd abused them. So I got terrible tendonitis halfway through, or about 300 miles into it. I went to a doctor and she said, you know, this is going to take time, but have you thought about buying a bike? And so I bought a bike, a used bike from the handyman at a hotel I was staying in, and it didn't hurt. And so I biked the rest of the way, part of Belgium and all of Holland. And you don't do the full length of Holland, but you do a nice amount, all on bike trails. The GR5 follows those a lot, but when it would go off on trails, I would just look at these wonderful maps of the bike trails and just follow the GR5 as best I can. But it is totally flat. It's so cool in Europe just to see how these houses, the villages change. Oh, I see they're all wood now, the houses. Oh, now they're stone, and they do this around, just in this village, this around their windows. One village I walked through in Belgium, they spoke only German, and that was it. But, you know, it was so close to Germany. But I was out by noon of the German zone. I speak nothing. I say 9. That's it. So it's so cool, the regional differences, and it just happens so quickly.
I'm also aware that your former trail name was Chocoholic.
Yes.
I imagine going through Belgium and the surrounding areas was probably pretty well received.
Oh my God,
for you.
just heaven.
Yeah.
The trail name came years later on the AT, but yes, I have always been addicted so much that I've given it up because of the way that I eat, which I'll talk about later. But it has saturated fat and sugars, and it's just that I can't control it. You know, I'd have one of these bars and it'd be like, okay, I'm going to have 2 squares today. By noon, where's the bar? It's gone. So I'm better off with abstinence.
Yes.
Yeah, so I became Ruthless. That's my new trail name.
Ruthless.
Ruth morphed into Ruthless.
Love that.
It's fun.
What other cultural experiences like stand out along the GR5? Like what are the can't miss, gotta stop here types of things that make it really unique?
Oh, that's really great. I love the villages the most. You go into them, and in the middle of the square, there's a fountain and a sign in French that says it's drinkable water. I never bought bottles of water. I don't recall. Yeah, staying at the hostels is just such a cultural event. Just everything. I don't know. I love it. That's why I'm going back to do Tour de Mont Blanc, because it shares part of the way with it, and I know it'll be much more heavily trafficked. This thing, don't think the AT or PCT, not a whole lot of people, but people section hike it a lot. I actually did not finish at Nice. That would be cool, but there is also a website, I think it's called the GR5. It's by a man named David May, and he has wonderful descriptions of it. He's an American. And he said, instead of going down and following the traditional final 100 miles and finishing at Nice, here's a variant you can do that takes you through even better mountains. And so I ended near a town called Menton, which is right near the Italian border. And just finishing at the Mediterranean is just so cool. I don't know. There's not one thing that I say is a must-see, the whole thing. Yeah. But the most dramatic, of course, are the Alps.
Mm-hmm. Is the trail pretty well marked? Is it difficult to follow?
Beautifully. beautifully. Yeah, I had no apps. I don't know that they existed. I did this in 2007, 9, and 13. But I had my sister-owned guide, and I was happy to have it. A lot of times, especially in Switzerland, they will post the signs, say, okay, to the hostel. Instead of saying 2 hours, 2 miles, they'll say 1 hour. They do it the average speed that they think it'll take you to get there, and they're on the money. Yeah.
If you had to guess, what percentage of the time are you camping versus staying at one of the hostels or hotels?
On the GR5, personally, zero camping for me.
Camping?
I didn't know about it. And if you look at my posts, some pictures maybe I have on my blog post, I think I have pictures showing my big old honkin' backpack I bought, because I thought, I'm going 500 miles in the Alps, it has to be big. All I needed was a silk sheet for sleeping in the hostels. They have the blankets, and I thought I had to have change of clothes. But camping is hard. Camping is hard because it's private and it's grazing, and you may have sheep and cows coming to you. It's a challenge that way. So they'd have to find that out maybe through if there's a Facebook group, because I did not do it. I camped, of course, on the AT and all the others.
Yeah. I'm sure you've interacted with Kelly Floro before, the former editor, soon-to-be editor again.
I've certainly read all her posts.
Okay, so she's out. She's now posting her update from the Pyrenean hot route.
Yes.
And so many of her stories are just navigating cows and sheep out.
It was cool. I only had one huge sheep herd, but just to walk through them, and there's the little hut that the shepherd stays in. It was like back in the Middle Ages. It's so cool. And it exists, you know?
Do you recall what the average cost of staying at a hostel or a hotel is? I know that there's probably a range.
Now I don't know because it was so long ago. I have not looked into it yet. I would guess, I'm not going to say euro, I'll say in dollars, at least 50, if not 75, because it includes dinner and breakfast, which might be like coffee and jam and fruit and a bread. Very light. And you can buy sandwiches to go in baguettes. Really good.
Yeah.
So are you factoring, like, let's assume the number is 50 to 75. Are you factoring like 50 to 75 bucks a day each night to stay in one?
That's my guess.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking that. I was like,
It's
for
not
1,500
cheap.
miles, it's kind of pricey.
It is, yeah. And I will say the hostels are in the Alps. And up north, you find a way to camp or you pay for hotels. So, yeah, that's in mind. If you want the experience, the Tour de Mont Blanc gives you hostels almost the whole way, and you can camp, you know, and just it's so marvelous. And if you want to do more, when you're done with that, there's hikes everywhere.
Did you do each of these sections during the summer?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That you have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it
They
pretty
are
hot?
mountains.
Or
And no, to my memory, it's very pleasant. Most of the hostels close down by the second week in September. Some of these, their only access for supplies are helicopters. It's really amazing. They can be older. They can be beautiful log structures. It's just so with amazing views. It's just so cool. Each one's different. But yeah, it needs to be like when I do Tour de Mont Blanc, I'm going to probably do 10 days, and I will probably start the last week of August because it's really crowded in August. That's when the French and most of the Europeans, to my knowledge, take their holidays with the kids. And so I want to go right when the kids have gone back to school and it's not too crowded.
And before we move on from the GR5, do you have any favorite standout stories? Maybe something either related to the trail or not related to the trail, just something that stands out to you in terms of like a fond memory.
I think it's just because it was the beginning of my learning curve. Walking through the huge flock of sheep, as I said, I can't remember offhand. It's been a while. Anything really unusual that happened. It's just that changed the whole trajectory. I still did marathons, but I moved away from them and kept. When I came back and decided to do the AT, I simply couldn't resist. I knew, although I knew they wouldn't be Alps.
Yeah. Was it a difficult adjustment going from running on paved roads to doing more intense hiking like that?
I was able to train because in 10 minutes I could be on a great trail, and I had 2 dogs and didn't work. And in the afternoon we'd go for long hikes. So no, I think when we were in Japan, I would hike in the mountains right behind our apartment, maybe once a month, but I was younger than I am now. So it was different and just had to be more careful with your step, but easier on the body.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Let's talk about section hiking the Appalachian Trail.
Yeah.
So you did this over 4 sections. Give us the years on those.
Okay. 2017, I started. Let me think. 17, 18, 19. Yeah. 17, 18, 19, and 21. I listened to them when the AT Conservatory, or whatever it is, Conservancy, said, don't come in 20. And I was still healing up from some things. I resisted it as long as I could because I thought, green tunnel. Who wants to be in a green tunnel after the Alps, you know? I didn't go over peaks, but those passes were high and beautiful. But I knew it was like the grandmother of all the trails of almost anywhere. And I just couldn't resist. And so I decided to do it as a flip-flop over 2 summers and falls was my plan. So I started at Harper's Ferry and I went south, but after 500 miles, again, an injury, tendinitis, trail running shoes that wore out. When will I learn? I have learned. Now I learned on Colorado Trail this year. And so I limped home from that, and then I went right back the next year it was Pearisburg. And I finished it down at Springer, and my daughter picked me up, and I was just exhausted. It was like mid-November. I was freezing to death on the trail. I sleep cold. I said, Becky, take care of me. I just can't think anymore. You know, you're responsible for yourself. And so then the 3rd summer, I went back to Harper's Ferry and went north, and I was going to do the whole northern half, and I got 900 miles done. I had 250 left to go. Stress fractures in the pelvis and on both sides. And so I went home and said, I'm never going back. I hate the trail. I'm giving you the whole story, and I'm sitting on the sofa with crutches, just depressed. My husband takes a deep breath. He says, if you will go back and finish, I will do the 100-mile wilderness with you, which was very big on his part. Much more time than he normally does, and much, much harder than he usually does. So I said, no, I'm not going. Within 2 weeks, I'm writing my itinerary. And we did go back in 21. And he joined me for the 100-mile wilderness. And every time I mention this, I get teary-eyed. But I'm just going off on a tangent here. But the most meaningful thing to me about the AT was not the hike. I did most of my hiking alone, too. But when I was going north, that's 3rd summer, and I had about 400 miles to go. I was just worn out, and my hips were really hurting. Little did I know things were starting to develop there. And I met a Swiss fellow and his wife, and she spoke fluent English, and he didn't speak hardly any English, but they were so nice. But you know, I enjoyed hiking with them a bit. And then she went home to Switzerland to her job. And Freeman, his trail name, was on his own. I was on my own. I ran into him at a hostel, and we both were kind of desperate for companionship. Don't get the wrong idea. With our spouse's blessing, we fist bumped and we said Katahdin together. And it was great. It was great. And it was nice because the reason I like to hike alone is when I'm with people, I yak away and I don't notice the nature. We couldn't yak. And I'm totally comfortable with silence. I taught English as a second language when I was overseas. I'm used to people not being able to speak. I couldn't speak some of the languages for a while. And so we just would hike silently and got along well. He had a few words. We could maybe sit at dinner and say, good food. But by the time we got to Andover with 250 miles left, New Hampshire, White Mountains, and southern Maine had taken their toll. And I just sat in the trail and cried, and I said, I can't go on. My hips hurt so much. It was because I had not taken a 0 day for 12 days, and normally I do about every 5th day. But the weather was perfect, and I didn't want to jinx it. So I thought about it, and he looked so crestfallen. He was ready to go home alone to Switzerland. I said, I'm going to rent an SUV, and I am going to support you to the end. And, you know, as best I could tell, he couldn't believe it. He couldn't say much. He was so dear, though. And so that's what I did. And he said, no more camping. He was sick to death of it. And we got out our credit cards and platinum blazed, and I would take him I bought the big road atlas, and we'd just work at it with Far Out app and the road atlas, and I'd drop him off here and pick him up here every day, you know, keep going. I would book all the lodgings. In the way we do things on the long trails, we'd share a hotel room, but there were always 2 beds. Our spouses were happy. And it was great. And so and I stopped once to resupply him on the 100-mile wilderness. And by the time he got to Katahdin, the base of Katahdin, I felt great. And so I said, because I sat in that car for 3 weeks, whatever it was, I feel good. I'm going to climb Katahdin with you. And that was just so rewarding. Not as rewarding as climbing with my husband 2 years later. But yeah. And then coming down, let's see, you go up Hunt Trail. What's the real rocky one that you come down? I can't remember the name of that one.
Able?
Yes. That,
I don't know. I think that might be a trail too.
I think that's it. Able. Something like that. By the bottom, I was not able to walk. It really, the stress fractures were not healed. So I limped home, but we accomplished. And then I was on the sofa, and then husband said, I'll go back with you. And then I did it again with him and came down the Hunt Trail. I did not want to do those rocks again. So yeah, 10 minutes later, I answered that question.
Yeah, there's a lot to drill in. Chaunce, take it.
I'm gonna lead us down a quick segue, as we do, just for one of the parts that you said. And this, I think, is important, or useful at least, to have the ability to hear other people kind of explain it to you. And one of the things that I encountered a lot when I was doing hiking from home and kind of interviewing people that were in relationships hiking was one of the big things that they fought about was the idea of, we're in a relationship and you're going to get a motel room, get a hotel room with like someone of the opposite sex. Like, no way, that's where I put my foot down. You can't do that. I saw that a lot. And trying to explain to the person at home, like, no, it's not a big deal. I feel like when you're in that relationship with them, it can be really hard for them to believe you almost.
Yeah.
But with you guys both having your spouses at home and that setup, can you kind of walk the listener, if they're not familiar with it, through how that's okay? Well,
next summer, we will celebrate 50 years of marriage.
Wow.
And we've been together already 50 years, 51 years. Total trust. And he knows. I mean, when I said I do and I will be loyal, he knows I am. And I know he is. And I saw Freeman with his wife, and they're a very loving couple. And every night I'd hear him on the phone talking to his wife. They spoke lots of languages together. Mi amore. And I spoke with her on the phone. You know, they were very happy. Bill knew I needed someone to get me to the end, and she knew. Now, before that, it really was stupid on my part, but I also hitchhike a lot. I love it, and everyone wishes I didn't, except Bill. He understands, whatever. I've got sharp, pointy sticks pointing right at the driver. I stayed in a cabin somewhere in Virginia with a guy, just the two of us, you know, and he was a total gentleman, and I'd hiked with him, and I just had a sense, and actually, later we shared a motel room too. Come to think of it.
It's a lot of trust.
You just go to sleep in your clothes, and you just, it is trust. But I went out of the cabin and called, I can't remember what his name was. Let's just say Joey, his trail name was Joey. I don't know what it was. But I knew where he was from, Franklin, Tennessee. And so I called my husband. I said, if they find my body in the woods, Joey of Franklin did it. Franklin, Tennessee did it. But when I hitchhike, sometimes I take a photo quickly of the
license plate. I do that too.
Yeah. But I would never hitchhike just everyday life. I would never stay in a motel room or a cabin with other people, other guys. But it's just part of the culture and trusting partnerships. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you were really hurt after that stretch of trail. And I know that one of your series of injuries was the inspiration for you to look into your diet and change things around. Was that the set of injuries that was the catalyst for that?
That was it completely. When I'm sitting on that sofa, I've got stress fractures both sides. It's like, what side do I favor? You know, I ended up buying really expensive $800 crutches that were forearm crutches for athletes. I mean, because the others just hurt so much on the hands and all. And it just wouldn't heal. I felt like it wasn't healing. I was depressed. And I'm looking up things online and looking at medical documentaries for how to make bones heal faster. I'm looking for a magic elixir. And then I see this documentary called The Game Changers. And it shows a real muscular guy. If you look closely, his veins are green. I figured that out later. It was about the plant-based diet, whole food plant-based diet, which whole food means not powders and potions, not the vegan meats and vegan Oreos, vegan French fries. It's eating food as close to its original source as possible. And this one I love because it's about world-class athletes, Olympic athletes, Scott Jurek, master trail runner, one of the best in the world. The strong Patrick somebody, his last name starts with B, from Europe, called the world's strongest man. Arnold Schwarzenegger, eat people that eat mostly plants or all plants. After I watched, I thought, boy, I had to consider it. I thought, you're an adult. Do it. And so I just plunge in. I mean, as you may have noticed, I get enthusiastic and I go 100%. I mean, like I married Bill, 100%. And so I thought, well, if I want to see results here, and my cholesterol since I was in my 40s has been really high. And my mother had a 5-way heart bypass at my age now and died a few years later anyway, because those things just keep filling up with plaque and you have a heart attack or stroke. And so when I told Bill that this is what I wanted to do, he's so accepting. I mean, fine. And it was COVID then too. I did that in January of 2020, and he said, I'll eat what you serve at home. I said, but if you want meat, you can get it, but you have to get it and cook it. We had a grill, but he never did. I mean, it was easy. Just think, I mean, it's just like having spaghetti. Instead of meat, you put in beans. You really don't miss it in many ways. And within 10 days of starting this, my depression lifted. I was on antidepressants. They were helping somewhat, but I could feel, I'd been on crutches 2 months, and I just didn't feel that I was healing, but my whole mood changed. My aches and pains, my hips that always hurt when I was running, I did all that running despite how my body felt. I do my hiking now because of how good it feels. It takes away inflammation, not eating animal products and I don't eat the added salt, oil, and sugar too. And I felt so good, and Bill as well. Instead of getting up out of bed, back aches, everything, wobble down to the bathroom in the morning, you just get up out of bed and go about your day. At 71, he's doing triathlons and is rated high in Ohio. And there are other triathletes there. He's not the only one. So, yeah, it just convinced me. And I learned more and more. I thought, well, this is vegan. People call it that too. But usually vegan means you approach it from more of an environmental or an animal way. I have gone that way, but I did it from the health aspect, and most people call that whole food plant-based. And so I eliminated anything that had a face or a mother, all meat.
What was the state of your diet prior to this change? Were you eating a lot of meat? Were you eating other things that got changed in this process?
Yeah, I ate paleo. I felt it was a healthy diet, but my cholesterol would be close to 300, and they wanted under 150. And it kept going up. So I started dehydrating. I did 9/10 of the AT. I mean, all of it. I dehydrated my own food because I wanted my own healthy food. I didn't want to just eat Spam or stuff like that. But it was paleo. It was a lot of meat. I did my own salmon jerky and beef jerky. I did not eat grains or beans. I don't remember about paleo if they don't recommend beans. I think those two were not recommended. I just didn't like beans. Grains they felt you couldn't really process well, so I'd use like rice cauliflower instead. But the cholesterol just kept going up, and I still had aches and pains everywhere. So when I switched, those last 250 miles, it was with plant-based and dehydrated all my food and Bill's as well. And just, I go to bed tired at night in the tent. I get up in the morning, it's like, let's go. I just feel at Colorado Trail this past summer, let's go, let's get done. Now, you get tired. If it's 500 miles you need to go, by 450, you're tired and you want to end. But if you have to have the energy for 2,000 miles, you hang on there until the very end. It's just like running races. But yeah, it brought my cholesterol way down. It totally reversed my prediabetes. It's fat, not carbs, that cause type 2 diabetes. I don't want to go into the science of it. People often think this is just a trend. It's been around for decades. I mean, for centuries, really, because in the Game Changers, they point out that the gladiators of ancient Rome were primarily plant eaters. You just heal faster if your gut is well, your brain is well. It's just connected. That's why my depression went away. I'm trying to think what else happened.
With the whole food plant-based diet, are you still consuming grains or?
Yeah, we eat what I do eat. What I told you, what I don't eat: animal product, no dairy whatsoever. Vegetarians do, but cheese and milk it's just another form of the cow, and it's just very cheese. I'm sorry, I know you like taco or nachos maybe with cheese, but it's milk. Dairy is a growth hormone. It's a growth formula for calves to grow from 60 pounds to 600 pounds in 1 year. Dairy is full of the hormones that make cells grow, and just like our infants do so much in the first year of their life when they're nursing. But our milk is meant for humans. Cow's milk is meant for cows. And this is why when humans choose to drink it or eat it as adults, babies aren't nursing as adults. We're not even meant to have milk. The cows are no longer nursing. And all that estrogen goes, and that's why there's so much breast cancer and prostate cancer and ovarian cancer, because we all have cancer cells in our bodies, and they're just waiting for stimulus to grow. And that's what all those estrogens, it's a different kind of estrogen in soy products, if it is even estrogen. That's not to be feared. It was feared for a while, but not anymore. So, yeah, I'm off on a tangent.
So I feel like this is kind of like Scared Straight. Like I'm interested, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm the fish looking at the hook. I'm interested.
I know.
But where it gets hard for me is I know as much as I could be convinced this is a great idea sitting here, if I went home and I was thinking, let's try this, I'm going to open my fridge up and I'm just going to have like that monkey crashing symbols in my head.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's just going to go blink. What are some meals that you eat?
Okay.
Like specific examples to make this seem more realistic.
Before I answer that, I just want to, I want to say what's very important, and I got this from your book, Appalachian Trials. It's very important to know why you're doing something and to be convinced. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Just like everybody tries to lose weight, but you have to know your why. And so before I did your book, and I wrote down why I was doing the Appalachian Trail. For me, I saw my mother in intensive care afterwards, after her bypass, and that was the hardest nights of her life. So it's either health, or if you feel very strongly about the mistreatment of animals, the horrific, I mean, most dairy cows never get outside the barn now. They're stuck in a stall their entire life. And it's just horrific. Or the environment. We're going to hell in a handbasket. And the carbon footprint, I'm not sure of how to phrase this, of the agriculture business for livestock is it has more greenhouse how do I say it greenhouse gas emissions than all of the transportation in the whole world. 70 to 80% of our farmland throughout the whole world, farm and grazing land, is devoted to animals, but they only provide 18% of our calories. So all that food is wasted. They're farting it out, pooping it out, living, their bodies are operating off of it. So maybe that's why you're convinced. So that helps you. I am tempted by things. Eventually your taste buds adjust. Actually, your taste buds change, I've heard, every 10 to 14 days. But so much of it is a habit and culture. They say obesity is a normal, and you're not obese, but obesity is a normal response to an abnormal environment. Just think of driving down the street, you've got Popeyes and Pizza Hut and blah, 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 McDonald's, blah, blah, blah. The only fast food that I eat that I consider healthy is a baked potato with nothing on it from Wendy's, and a spinach salad with veggies and vinegar on it from Subway. It's just out there. It's out there. I do all my grocery shopping in the produce section, and I skip almost all the main part of the supermarket. I'll buy the brown rice, and I'll buy the canned tomatoes and the beans, dry or canned, and that's pretty much it in the frozen department for veggies and fruit. But you have to know your why. And you have to say to yourself, just as you said, when I successfully thru-hike the AT, I will. For me, when I successfully continue to follow this, but see, it's not like there's one goal on this now. I can't reach a Katahdin. I've heard a great quote that success is never owned. It's only rented, and the rent is due every day. For this kind of thing, excuse me, I have to pay the rent every day. That means I have to really follow this way of eating. Some people, but that's how I am. I'm all or nothing. It doesn't have to be all. It can be all or something. Every meal, if you decide to have a bean burger instead of a ground beef burger, that is one step in the right direction for the earth and for yourself. Now, some of the Beyond Burger type things, they're so full of oil, it's not a healthier thing for you, but it's healthier for the planet. And the animals thank you. The animals thank you. So, and the third point that you made in your book is, if I give up on the AT, I will. So I know if I give up on eating plant-based, I will be so disappointed in myself, and I will look hypocritical, because I'm totally sold on this. And so if I let my taste buds, for a momentary pleasure, convince me to go against my ethics, basically, at this point, I value this. This is the one body I have been given for this life. It's my responsibility. I'm not going to trash it. And I'm not going to trash I'm going to do my best to protect those animals and our earth. And so I would be very hypocritical, and I would also reverse all the physical gains I've had. I'd get pre-diabetic again, maybe diabetic like Dad was. I'd just feel really bad. I'd start to ache all over. So a clean environment, back to your question. If you walk into my home, the only somewhat junk food is my husband's cupboard in the corner of the basement. God bless him. I asked him if he'd do it, because he has these trail mixes that I would love to have. And I have been guilty of getting a handful of them. But they're all deep fried and, just full of oils. And so if you have a clean environment, then it's not there. My crunchy needs are met by lightly salted rice cakes. I love
rice
them.
Cakes.
I ate 5 of them today.
So salt,
normally not that many.
Salt is good. Like, can you season things?
The best thing, reducing, now you guys are younger. but the older people and some young people have high blood pressure, and salt is very bad for that. And it also, we have three main things that our body craves, because this is what the caveman needed to get fat, to get through the winter. We love fats, we love sugars, we love salts. And if you combine them, I mean, that's just like giving a dopamine hit. You're on crack or something. And so think of potato chips. You've got salt and fat together. Overload, of course. I mean, bet you can't eat just one, is the truth. Because it's, and the industries know this. You know, pizza with cheese stuffed in the crust. We've got salt and we've got fat there. Do we need more? Yes, because then you'll be more addicted. It really, there's all these dairy councils and cattlemen associations, sorry, Colorado, that are lobbying all the time to get, lobbying with our senators. And so, you know, in that diagram of food for the healthy children, there's always milk there, even though it's really terrible for them for asthma and everything else. But there's no broccoli or kale council out there, you know, pushing for it. So you just have to have a clean environment, and remember your why. I have a friend who has struggled with it for 4 years, mostly wanting to lose weight, but she keeps coming back to it. She remembers her why. So, yeah, I can't remember your original question, but there I went.
No, that works.
Sort of a spin-off on Chaunce's question, because I think it's easy enough to find good plant-based recipes to make at home.
Yes.
I'm curious, how are you eating on trail? You mentioned that you're dehydrating all of your food.
Yeah.
Do you have a few go-to recipes that are your fallback?
That's what she asked. I found the backpackingchef.com, and he has he's an American who's married to a Swiss wife. He hikes on both continents. He has 2 cookbooks, Recipes for Adventure 1 and 2. And I learned everything there, how to dehydrate. I have 2 dehydrators chugging away. And I make a lot of curries. I make tomato base. I dehydrate my own hummus. I'm very happy you can dehydrate individual vegetables and fruit and beans and rice. You cook them beforehand and you dehydrate them for 10 hours at 125 degrees, about 10. And it just sits there and does its thing. You don't have to be looking at it every hour. And I'm just as happy taking some peas and corn and whatever veggies together with some beans and rice, throwing in some of my dehydrated hummus, and that's my meal. But I do a lot. I like variety, so I have about 10 meals I work through. If I could remember them, I should have written it down. But what I do is I cold soak. You
just lost Chaunce.
Oh, yeah. But you don't have to.
The bus here.
No, but I did the whole AT, and I only cold soaked the last 10th because I just got tired of the sound of scraping and cleaning out that pot. And my husband, the first year he was with me, he cleans it out and throws it out right by the tents. I said, no. So with cold soaking, I just put it in there, like, in the morning after I've eaten my oatmeal, which I'd cold soaked all night in its container. I'll put my lunch in there and add water. It takes about half a liter of water. I really have to be by water. And then I stick it in my backpack, and at lunch it's ready. And I will then put dinner in there. It takes beans and rice a long time to cold soak. So I just let them do it, or maybe mid-afternoon I'll do it if I'm doing some mountains and I don't want to carry extra water. And then at dinner, it's ready. And my snacks, I make wonderful cookies. I don't eat added salt, oil, or sugar. And I try to limit flours because I'm really addicted to baked goods. And so flour is kind of the thing, and it's highly processed. I avoid a lot of processed food. So I start with just rolled oats, not cooked, and mashed bananas, and vanilla, and cinnamon. And that's my cookie. Then I start adding things. I thought, well, we make zucchini bread. Let's grate some zucchini and put we have carrot cake. Let's put some carrot in there. Let's put in some chopped cooked greens, because I eat a whole lot of cooked spinach and Swiss chard and kale, because those are extra good. I won't go into the science of it for your cardiovascular system. They're huge. And if anyone has ED, and you know what that is, it's really good for that. that doesn't visit our home. Because we both eat a lot of cooked greens. So I'll put greens in it. And sometimes I'll say, let's just put the final big dose of protein in there and chop up chickpeas and put it in. And I make these little cookies about like this, and I dehydrate them, and 10 of them in a snack bag, and that is my favorite snack. I've also been known to put cooked beets in there. So yeah, I make my own trail mix. I don't eat nuts. The doctor whose program I follow for preventing and reversing heart disease, Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, he asked his patients, now in his studies, they were people who were sent home to die. I've not been sent home to die because of my heart disease, but I do know I have partial blockage of what they call the widowmaker artery in the heart. So I eat as if I was sent home to die. We eat no foods with oils in them. Nuts, even people without issues should limit nuts a little bit. Nuts, avocado, etc. So I don't use nuts in my trail mix, but I use dehydrated chickpeas for the crunch and a lot of really yummy veggies with seasonings.
You mentioned avocado. Is that a yes or a no?
For those with heart disease, no.
Just lost my thought.
And coconut. But what I've lost is so much less than what I've gained.
Yeah.
That's what I tell myself. And so it's fine.
I remembered my thought now. Let's say someone's not ready to go like both feet in, but they want to dabble.
Perfect.
What are the top things that you'd recommend either gravitating towards or gravitating away from? Like, let's say you can pick 3 for each.
Perfect question. Yes, not everyone is crazy like me and just go 150%. Dairy is the real culprit. It is a huge, that's what I would say. Start with just eat your regular foods, but if you put milk on your oatmeal or your cereal or whatever, go with one of those wonderful plant-based oats, soy, almond, all of those are wonderful. And try to don't go heavily sweetened. I would say dairy, go for sorbet if you're going to go eat something. I did that for years because I gave up dairy a long time ago. I discovered it really was not good for me. That's why most of us are lactose intolerant. We're not meant to be drinking it as adults. Sugar, processed foods.
These are big categories.
They are.
Like dairy's a whole
Dairy
genre.
is a whole. You could, if you said, okay, I'm just going to do it. Well, by processed, I mean the packages of things that, like the peanut butter crackers. It's just, they're wonderful, but as close to natural as you can get. Or do one meal. Say, I know breakfast. I can do that. And then a lot of people use the vegan burgers, the Beyond's and Incredible or whatever they're called, Impossible. A great way to get into it. And it's doing wonders for the planet and the animals. So you can tiptoe into it. Just know that if you're looking for physical improvements, you won't see it as much. They did autopsies on soldiers from the Korean and Vietnamese wars, of our young men and of the men from Asia. And they found in these 18 to 20-year-olds males, 80% of them, of the Americans, had the beginning of heart disease. And by that means, doesn't mean like, oh my God, they can't walk up a hill. It means their arteries are starting to fill up with fatty plaque. And that's what causes heart attacks. And people in their 40s, 30s have heart attacks. They really do, while running marathons. But when they did the autopsies on the Asians who ate a plant-predominant diet, no plaque. So the more you do, the more beneficial it is. But yeah, just dip your toes into it. I would strongly recommend, if people want to read something, and it's an easy read. It's called The Engine 2 Diet by Rip Esselstyn. He was a professional triathlete for about 10 years. He happens to be the son of the doctors whose program I follow, but he's really amazing. He knows how to make this accessible. So he was a professional athlete, and finally he realized he needed to grow up and get a real job. So he became a fireman, which so many boys want to do, down in Austin. And he ate plant-based ever since college because that's the way his family ate. And he noticed the number one killer of firemen on duty and off duty are heart attacks. It's not fires. And so he challenged his house of firemen, it was called the Engine 2 house, to, for 1 month, eat plant-based. And he gave them recipes because they all eat together. They're together, I think, like 24 hours on, 24 hours off. I don't know. Huge gains, huge gains. He is featured in The Game Changers, and also in Forks Over Knives, another documentary. And he has this book, The Engine 2 Diet, that explains very briefly all the physical benefits, and he has great recipes. I really like him, and I think your viewers could identify with him. And he has a cookbook out there, I think, too, a separate cookbook. Yeah.
I've got one more, and then I'll toss it back to you that's on topic.
Yeah.
We are both wet food people here. We like our foods. You're a wet food person, right?
You lost me on that.
I'm wet-ish. She'll describe it.
Yeah. Wet food person is someone who likes their foods, like, not dry. Like, I like to dip a slice of pizza in a ranch. I like to have a salad that's more covered in dressing than the next person. What kind of wet foods fall in line with this that can take, like, a normal salad and make it saucy?
You can make non-oil dressings easily. Very often what I do is I use orange juice. I squeeze it. You could use commercial. I add chopped ginger. I add a little bit of mustard, and then I add balsamic vinegar, which is so yummy, and shake it and put that on. I just douse mine. I like mine to be like coleslaw.
So mustard's good.
Mustard is fine.
Okay.
The people who are very, very careful, I'm not that careful. There is some tiny bit of salt in mustard. I don't have to be that way. I'm totally reasonable.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned curries.
Yeah, sure. Curries. I mean, just think like, the pastas, the chilies. Only my chili has sweet potatoes in it. Oh, my God, it's so good. And the beans and the tomatoes and everything else is just the usual. Yeah, the backpacking chef, if you ever were tempted to dehydrate, he has mostly meat meals in there. But his second book has more of the vegetarian. But I've learned how to just do my regular recipe or the individual contents. But I don't see why you couldn't do it, and you can make hummus without, and you can have oil. What it's recommended is to avoid the saturated oil, the coconut oil, the ones, if you see in the bottle fat on the top, that you don't want to have. That palm oil, which the popcorn that you put in the microwave is just coated in. That's the stuff, when it goes in your veins, it's just going to be like what's on top of the jar. It's going to be coating your arteries, and eventually you pay the price.
Olive oil?
Olive oil is the best of them all.
Okay.
Yeah. From my viewpoint, it's the least worst. I just don't do it. For me now, and I convinced my husband even before we changed our diets, I said, why do you put oil on lettuce? Who wants greasy lettuce? Just there's a place called the Olive Tap and also a place called the California Balsamics that sell flavored balsamic. You wouldn't believe all the flavors: hickory smoke, blueberry, Sicilian lemon, and I just go and that's it.
Okay, yeah, I'll have to get that.
Yeah, they're
site
so
from
good. The Olive Tap.
You had me at flavored sauces.
All right, let's just shift off of nutrition.
Let's do, please. Yeah. I'm exhausted.
You mentioned toward the top of the interview that 4 weeks of backpacking is more your speed versus 4 months.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of the advantages of section hiking or lashing versus through hiking, because I know you did a through hike this year, and sometimes tomato, a long section on the AT is comparable to a through hike of the Colorado Trail. But give us, in your words, what's the advantage of doing a 4-week chunk of backpacking versus something longer?
That's a great question. You can choose when you want to go. It's not like you're having to say, how will I carve out six months? So any season that you prefer to do. I'm doing around the Buckeye Trail in Ohio. I'm doing in 3 to 5 day, 7 day sections, and I just watch for perfect weather because I got rained on enough on the AT. So I said it will never rain on me on the Buckeye Trail. Yeah, that's mostly it, and you avoid injury. You're really master of your own destiny, more of that. I just really like it. And your enthusiasm stays up. I was just really on that when I got 900 miles down on the northern part of the AT. I really was sick of it. I usually, when I'm collecting water, I look around and I think, this is so gorgeous. I'm going to miss it so much when I'm done. The last week or so during that 900 stretch, I looked around and I thought, this is so ugly. Look at all those trees that are down in the forest. And so my enthusiasm stays high when I can go home before I'm sick of it.
Yeah. That's certainly congruent with my experiences with the shorter backpacking trips. I remember when I did the Tahoe Rim Trail.
I want to do that.
It's a great trail.
Oh, I
highly
wanna do
recommended. Maybe it would have been challenging this year, but otherwise, yeah. But let's see, PCT hikers are 700 some miles into their journey at that point when I'm just getting started, and you could very quickly discern the difference between a Tahoe Rim Trail hiker and a PCT hiker. There's some other tells, like gear is obviously going to be different most of the time, but there's just more life in the eyes of the Tahoe Rim Trail hikers, whereas the PCT hikers, they're making miles, they still have so much trail to go in front of them. It's just a totally different experience. And as somebody that's thru-hiked, there's a lot of value in that, but getting to the age that I'm at now, I definitely value being able to enjoy more of the experience, or as much of the experience as possible with the shorter backpacking trips.
I agree. It was very rewarding for me to say the words, I thru-hiked the Colorado Trail. I did it in 48 days because I love my zeros every 5 days. And so I had 10 zeros. I loved it. I loved every bit of it. I love the trail town so much. But it was a source of pride. And I thought, okay, sometimes I think the thru-hikers are maybe a little too proud of that, but now I understand. Yeah.
And based on that, you've now mentioned a few things I think are good to put a pin in. You mentioned that you try to take a zero every 5 days. That obviously you've put a huge emphasis into your diet. What other tips would you have for the older backpackers of the world in terms of being, myself included, ears perked? What other tips would you offer for the older backpackers to be able to make this like a sustainable activity?
Yeah. Plan it carefully. I write an itinerary because I need to say to my husband, mail food to here, 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 and here. But just do all the preparations you can and train. I mean, I just train. I don't get more than 10 miles in my final last training hikes, but I get up to 10. And I average about 15 now. And on the Colorado Trail, I did a 20 and a 21. And Florida Trail is flat, so I can do up to 18 and 20 easily. I don't go faster, I just go longer hours. But just a lot of training, and not just the walking. I mean, the core to support your back. And I just recently discovered through a friend, Deborah Shields, who told me about the knees over toes guy. And that I twisted my knee 5 days from the end of the Colorado Trail, just walking in camp, finding a place in the woods to put my bear canister, and I stepped in a hole and twisted it. Oh, it hurt so much. But KT tape, I got to the end. But he just addresses all the muscles so well, and I'm working on the glutes too, because that way the knees don't get such a load. Just really work those muscles. A lot of squats. Yeah.
What's the knees over toes thing you just mentioned?
He's amazing. The knees over toes, because we're warned all the time. Now, he says he's not a medical professional. He's a trainer, but he has a huge following. We're told all the time when you're doing these exercises, if you're doing forward lunges, don't let your knees go over your toes. But through his book, Knee Ability is the book I have, if you follow his instructions carefully, he says don't work through pain. Just do as much of these exercises as you can. And gradually he has you getting your knees over your toes to extend your range and work the muscles more. And he was always known as the old man on the basketball court, which he loves basketball because he just ached so much from high school on. And now to look at his book and see him on YouTube, I mean, he just jumps. He's so fit. I trust it. He recommends pulling a sled. I filled a big box with handles on it that bananas are shipped in, and I just put hiking boots and power tools, whatever was in the garage, in it, and you tie a rope around your waist and tie it to the box, and then pull it walking forward and pull it walking backwards. But you can buy really nice sleds for, $500 to $1,000. My banana box works just fine on the neighborhood soccer field where no one will see me midweek. I wouldn't do it down my street. So just training, and my friend Deborah is seeing huge gains in her hiking by pulling her sled and pushing it.
Yeah, I've seen him recommended quite a bit. And
Yeah.
that backward sled pull is the video that always shows up for me for whatever reason. But I know he's really highly regarded in terms of like regaining mobility and just like total range of motion and function and all that good stuff.
But he does emphasize don't work through pain. Just do what you can. And I did it only 4 times before I got on the Colorado Trail. I'd just gotten the exercise for my friend, and I was able to finish because of those. Really, I believe it.
Can you cite any specific disadvantages to section hiking relative to through hiking? And I know, again, obviously through hiking the Colorado Trail is comparable to doing a lash on the AT, but
if it's something that involves altitude, that's why I chose not to. I could have gotten off at Salida very happily. I mean, didn't feel that way then, but in advance. But I didn't want to come back and reacclimated at Breckenridge, and you'd start at Waterton Canyon. You acclimate. I never had an altitude issue. I didn't want to deal with it again. And you have to retrain, but I met some teachers who came on their spring breaks and summers and long weekends and section hiked the whole AT. They climbed Katahdin when my husband and I did, and they did it, but it's harder that way, I would say, and just logistics, really organizing that. How am I going to get here and there? Who's going to pick me up at the end of it?
Let's jump to the Florida Trail.
Let's do that.
Yeah. So you've done one of the 3 sections that you've broken up. Walk us through your experience there, because I know that's one of the things that you've written about at length on the trek, and some of your photos were honestly, the Florida Trail is probably the trail I feel the most dichotomy on, because I hear some terrible things about it and I hear some amazing things about it. The photos that you shared were dedefinitely in the amazing camp. So yeah, walk us through your experience there.
Okay. I didn't understand the word dichotomy, but you explained it. Yeah, I don't know why I decided to do it. I can remember when I decided to do all these others, but somehow there I was. We call ourselves stimulus junkies after being overseas 18 years. We love new, exciting experiences, and this is so unusual. I've done mountains, and it's just, I don't know. I decided to do it in 3 sections. It's 1,100 miles. End to end. You can do more, but you choose which side of Lake Okeechobee do I go around and which side of Orlando do I go around. And if you just do one side of them each, it's 1,100 miles. I like my husband. I don't like to be gone that long. And he's fine. He's totally supportive. But I would much rather hike for about 4 or 5 weeks and then go home and come back the next year, and I can look forward to it 3 times then. And so I started, almost everyone starts in January down in the Everglades at Big Cypress Natural Preserve, because there's fewer bugs, it's cooler, and then as you're going north, it just works best that way. And so, the first 3, there's a camp out first that I can't remember the name of the association that supports the hikers. The Florida Trail Association supports them, the trail, but this supports the hikers. And they have a big camp out about 10 miles from the start at Big Cypress, and people camp there 2 or 3 nights, and then they transport you to the trail, and they try to stagger everybody, because the first 3 to 4 days are in Big Cypress, and I would say quarter to maybe a third of the time you're walking in water. Up to your bye.
For someone who likes wet food, you sure don't like.
I'm like in my head here, sitting here, like, how am I gonna ask? Like,
oh no,
are the alligators like walking through water
A-word
thing in my head, or is like I'm trying to picture how I'm gonna ask this question while I'm listening, which isn't really a great active listening skill. And the second you said that was the reaction that my body just made.
That's the A word, and on the AT, it's the B word. Bears, always. And Colorado is the bears. Nobody's thought of something to warn me about for Buckeye Trail. Tractors?
Boredom, the other B word.
There we go. Sometimes. I never saw an alligator. They were at Big Cypress, the preserve behind chain link fences in a canal. I never saw one in the swamp, and very few people have. If they do, it's just like the bears on the AT. They turn and run unless I don't think they get habituated to eating human food. They don't get it, but the bears do, of course, on the AT. Snakes. There are water moccasins. I've only seen. I did 300 miles. I think it was maybe 350 last year. This past January, I just saw a little black snake. So yeah, you start in Big Cypress. Within 5 minutes, you're walking in water up to maybe just your shoes, maybe up to your ankles, sometimes up to your thighs. But it feels
Up
good.
to your thighs?
Yeah, because it's warm. It's warm out. It's very hot. Look at my pictures during the day, and so it feels really good. But you have to be careful because it's almost like coral that you're walking on. It's flat somewhat, but every now and then there's holes that you might step in. So you just kind of slide your feet and you use your poles a lot. I fell many, many times. I had an inner ear infection and my balance was off, and I was partially deaf, but I thought, well, I could go home to Ohio and be partially deaf or out on the trail. I don't know if there's birds chirping on the Florida Trail because I couldn't have heard them. But it's, in a odd way, it's fun. It's really fun. And then there's what they call soul-sucking mud. Some years it goes up to the knees. This year it only went up to the ankles maybe, and you just go very, very slowly. It's like mud mixed with glue and snot. But it's the most unique thing I've ever done. After 3.5 days, I came out. I'm at a highway rest stop where there's volunteers there with a shoe washing station, all the snacks you could want, even things I would eat, fresh fruits. And I said, never again. Within a week, I thought, if somebody I really like wanted to go through Big Cypress, I would do it again with them. It's just like Colorado Trail. I said never again. Now I'm thinking, maybe I'll do the collegiate loop.
The part I just can't get past is, like, talking about the perhaps up to your thighs parts of walking through water and stepping on coral. How do you not just have your mind just, maybe I'm just a very anxious person, but stepping on anything, even corally feeling, I'd be like, that could be an alligator body. I don't know. The water's up to my thighs.
It doesn't feel like coral. The reason I said it was somebody told me Florida was the last part to come up out of the ocean on our continent, basically. So when you drive a stake in, the dirt's about that thick, and you have to put your stake in. Dead man's and other big rock, little rock, different ways to put your stake in, because the bedrock is so close to the surface. This is when it's good to go with groups. I just am so comfortable doing it. I started with a group of 20-somethings. We stayed together 30 seconds, and they were off. I just go at an even pace with my photo breaks. I do so many photos. My snack breaks, my potty breaks. I average 2 miles an hour. And that's what I'm comfortable with. And I'm not going to try to keep up with anybody. So I don't usually have a group, but I'm comfortable with it. It's nice. Usually I camp with others. And there the camping is limited, so I was with others. It was great.
I think you mentioned in one of those blogs that your least favorite part of the Florida Trail section was the long road walk.
Yes.
And like a busy highway.
Yeah.
Did any part of you, since you're only out there doing like, you're cherry picking the seasons, you're trying to make it as enjoyable of an experience as possible, did any part of you toy with the idea of just skipping that part?
That would be like me eating a Hostess Twinkie right now.
Okay. Okay.
No.
Yeah, you're talking to somebody that would do that. Both of those things.
Never. Because I am so honest too much. but I want to be able to say I hiked the whole thing. And a very nice Bat 6, if he's watching this, very nice trail angel who brought me baked potatoes the second day he saw me. I told him I was craving them, and he baked them and brought them to me on a road walk. He offered me a ride when my knee was hurting, when I stepped in another hole and hurt my knee on the Florida Trail. So I got off 3 days early for that injury. And he offered me a ride to my destination. I said, I just can't do that. Yeah. But I knew when I had to stop. I did have him come get me at my last campground. And I said, I need rescuing at Toso-Hachi Wild Preserve or whatever it's called. I don't continue on injuries. But no, I won't.
Yeah. That's good. That's a good attribute.
Yeah.
So I have family in Ohio, in-laws, and from what I've seen of the state, it doesn't seem like the most exciting hiking destination.
Ohio. We're on Ohio, yeah.
What did I say?
No, you did.
You said Ohio.
You said Ohio.
Okay.
I thought, and the rest of Florida is great. They say it's like a strand of pearls held together with brown twine, and the brown twine are the road walks.
Yeah, sure.
But the rest I adore.
Can you give me your best sales pitch for what you've experienced so far on the Buckeye Trail?
Okay. If you live in Ohio and you want to know more about the state and go through all these cute little towns you didn't know existed, I recommend it. If you're expecting to see other hikers, you're not going to. You may see a few day hikers, but for me, it's a very pleasant 3 to 5 day getaway. And if there's lovely state parks in the state, and I've really enjoyed staying in those, but it's challenging. I can't say I apologize, Ohioans. I can't say glowing things about it like the others because it is more low key. But I really have enjoyed the canal paths where they used to haul the canal boats between Lake Erie and the Ohio River in the southern part of the state. And those are wooded, and you just you go by a lot of locks where they would raise and lower the water, and a lot of history that way. Some renovated river boats. I've done the western side and the northern, and those were pretty scraped clean by the glaciers. And now I'm more into the east by Akron going south, and the southeast is called Little Appalachia. And I have done some isolated hiking there with groups, and it's much hillier, and it'll be more topographically, would I say, interesting. But I've enjoyed. Somebody told me, they said when you are on a trail, you get to experience nature. When you're road walking, you get to experience the culture. And I have to agree with that. I've been invited to see farmers' wives' vegetable gardens. One dairy farmer asked me if I'd come help milk the cows.
What'd you say with that?
I said, I'm sorry, but I'm vegan, and laughed.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I'm sorry for you too. I said, I'm not.
Agree to disagree. Yeah.
Have you been out to the Hocking Hills
Yes.
part of it yet?
That is where I decided to do the Buckeye Trail because the blaze is blue, kind of like side trails. And I thought, this is just so beautiful. I thought, that is the Buckeye Trail. Why not?
I'm pretty sure it was Hocking Hills. I lived in Cincinnati for a year, and I think it was Hocking Hills that we would go to in the winter, which is nice if you're doing a section hike.
Yes.
But I have never seen so many cardinals in one place as there, and it was just crazy because there was the snow on the ground, and talk about like Ohio being a little lackluster for views. Yeah. I haven't seen anything like that with just so many red cardinals on that backdrop of snow, where I feel like that would be such a good
beautiful
section to do in an off season.
That is probably among the most popular hiking in Ohio, Hocking Hills. And from the major cities, except for maybe Cleveland, from Columbus and Cincinnati, it's just like 2-hour drive. Or something like that. Yeah. Another popular one is Red River Gorge down in Kentucky.
Big for climbing, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I did a lot of shakedown hikes there. And I intend to do the Sheltowee Trace, which goes from northern Kentucky down to, I think, the Tennessee border. And there's a group that will 2 weekends a month. You can choose one weekend. If you do this for a whole year, in 12 months, you will have the whole trail done with a group. That would be a nice change for me. That's my intention.
Yeah, it's not very Whole30. Whole30, is that what it's called? The
Whole30?
Whole Foods?
Whole food.
Plant-based whole food
plant-based whole food diet. It's not very that, but at Red River Gorge, Miguel's has really good pizza. This is more for the listener.
I can get veggie, hold the cheese. On Amtrak train, I said, I'll take the steak dinner, hold the steak. I got the baked potato and the beans.
I thought you were going the Skyline Chili route there.
Oh, my God.
Though the wedding I went to in Cincinnati, they had a Skyline Chili bar at the
fun.
reception. It
In
was
my
hilarious.
past life, I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Is just mostly cheese.
Yeah.
So probably not congruent with your diet today. Well, we're already basically at what I told you the interview would be, so I'm sorry to keep jumping subjects, but we should talk about the Colorado Trail.
Let's do.
Yeah, so that was this year. That was just a thru-hike.
Yes.
Walk us through what was your favorite standout moments from that trail, and I know that there were some components of the trail that were different from what you were used to with your prior hiking, in that you'd hiked with a group for a period of time.
Yes, that's true. Thank you. A real highlight were the trail towns, because I lived as a child just for 2 formative years in the little mining town of Creede. And that was basically the peak of my whole hike, because I have such wonderful memories of it. And I've been back as an adult. My grandparents lived in Saguache, not just 2-day hike, 1-day hike from that. So I had time there. I loved the trail towns. But just breathing the air, there's just a smell the Alps didn't have. Just the pines. I don't know what it is. And it's just my heart. I lived 8 years in Colorado. I just love it as a kid.
Was it very nostalgic to come back here?
Very nostalgic. And as I said, I've been back on road trips and short day hikes and things. But yeah, I wanted to be in just the heart, in the belly of the beast. And the collegiates just blew me away. Wildernesses. Oh my God, I'd never been in such a thing. It was almost frightening. It was just so overwhelmingly beautiful above timberline. And then the San Juans. I was happy when they were done, because when you're doing it alone, you're nervous and you're afraid of thunderstorms. But I started late July and I finished September 12th. I took a long time. I knew it'd take that long time. I had it planned to the day. And I was able to stick with it because I was trying to avoid the monsoon season. And I did. I only got caught in about 3 thunderstorms, and I just waited it out down low in the trees. What was I going to say? The group, as I said, towards the end, I had hurt my knee twisting and hiding my bear canister. Gotta use those poles and watch every step. So the last 4 days, it was on a wing and a prayer. And there were 2 ladies I'd met earlier in camp with 1 or 2 nights, and we ended up just together. And then another woman who was finishing up a section hike, and she was very cautious because of bad encounters with thunderstorms. And so we all strengthened each other. And one of them had been having altitude sickness the whole way. I didn't know it and kept going. We strengthened, but we'd hike alone for the most part. The 2 original friends stayed together. But we always knew where we'd camp at night. And it was just 3 or 4 nights of camping. But we just meshed. It was just beautiful and enjoyed each other so much. I'm going to tear up on that, like I did for my husband. So I saw the value. I didn't want to use the word tramily, because sometimes I feel like, that's just such a catchphrase, and I wouldn't say that. I think we were pretty independent, but it was really meaningful, and we finished together. And my brother-in-law and his wife were there to pick me up, and he got everybody into town, and we all had pizza that night. It was beautiful, and we're still in communication.
That's beautiful. You mentioned that you didn't deal with altitude sickness at all?
No. I was at Breckenridge 3 days training, and that did the trick. But we've climbed Kilimanjaro, and I didn't have altitude issues.
Yeah.
I might... At the top of passes, Hope Pass. Never again. Beautiful, but tough. I get a little lightheaded. I can't turn my head like that really quickly. But that's it.
Yeah.
I was lucky.
That's a good advantage to have because I know that can break a lot of people.
Yes.
I'm like you. I do
very
pretty
real.
well at altitude, so it's oftentimes I forget that is such a challenging component of the trail.
Yeah.
But I feel fortunate that it's not a huge.
Yeah. I mean, Breckenridge is at 9,000 feet, I think, and we went up to 9.5 for our training hike. So we were ready.
Yeah.
And my husband left me at Bailey.
Okay.
Yeah, after 4 days.
Well, Ruth, we're over the time I promised you already. This has been a ton of fun. Is there any parting messages or anything you want listeners of Backpacker Radio to hear before we go?
Yeah, don't think you have to do things like me. I'm sure you don't want to. With improving your diet, a little bit can go a long way. I just really encourage people to make their diets more plant predominant. Throw in, if you're getting pizza and beer in town, get a good salad too. I just really push and limit the dairy. Your body will thank you. And especially for the seniors that are saying, oh yeah, but I can't go out for such a long thing. Right now I put a challenge on my Facebook page, which is Heart Healthy Hiking. It's Heart-Healthy Hiking. I'm just going to city and county parks in Cincinnati and to stay in shape. And I'm going to parks I've never been to before. You don't have to travel hundreds or thousands of miles to get to a big trail. Just do what's out your back door. But get out and do it. And walking on the treadmill's nice if you have to in bad weather, but you need nature. So,
Here. Could not agree more. This has been awesome. Thank you very much.
I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, I know there's a lot more that we could still talk about, but you've got a fun golf tournament to head to.
Oh, it's going to be so fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. They take their golf seriously, but not themselves. And same here.
Yeah, I love that. Ruth, thank you so much for joining us here in Backpacker
Thank
Radio.
you.
To the Trek propaganda portion of today's show. I should have also mentioned at the end of Ruth's interview that we'll include the link to Ruth's Trek blogger profile if you want to keep up with her posts. I'm sure she's got many more journeys in the future. We didn't even ask her that question.
Yeah, well, we didn't really get through a lot of it. We talked more than we thought we would.
That's right.
It was just so fun.
Yeah. But the article I want to feature today is by a new contributor, Chrissia Caldwell. And the title of this one is Meet Sean Mahoney, a.k.a. Logman, the thru-hiker who carried a log on the AT and PCT. We should see if this fella is passing through Colorado because this will be a fun interview for sure. But as always, the title kind of keys you into what the post is going to be about. Sean Mahoney, known as Logman, is an Iraq veteran who completed remarkable thru-hikes of the AT and PCT while carrying a 5-foot, 20-pound log named Larry. His journey began after leaving the Air Force and using the log for fitness training, all the while raising funds for the Wounded Warrior Project and connecting with veterans and fellow hikers. That is the overall gist. If you guys want more of the story, definitely head to the show notes, and I should hit up this fella to see if he's interested in coming on the podcast, because that would be a fun conversation.
Yeah, I've got two questions. Well, I've got a question and a thought. 20 pounds seems light for a 5-foot log.
Yeah, maybe he hollowed it out or put cork in the middle. I don't
cheating.
know. Yeah.
Second is the question, which is, what would your log be? Like, what would be your log?
My log-like object.
Yeah, like what would you carry from start to finish?
Yeah. In a previous Trek propaganda, we talked about the guy that carried the leaf blower the entire
that's
AT.
funny.
That is. Have you been keyed into how terrible gas-powered leaf blowers are?
No.
I read some stat recently that running a gas-powered leaf blower for 30 minutes is... I'll probably get some of the details not exactly right, but in principle, this is correct. For 30 minutes is the equivalent to driving a Ford F-250, a large-ass truck, from Texas to Alaska.
How does that make sense? You need a lot more gas to get from Texas to Alaska.
Because it's just what is coming out of it is completely unfiltered, apparently. So, like, what is coming out is so much worse. But everything that I've read about gas-powered leaf blowers, they're just the worst thing, pound for pound, for the environment.
What about, like, a gas-powered lawnmower or a snowblower?
I don't know. I've only heard this about leaf blowers. I'm sure gas-powered anything is probably not awesome for the environment, but specifically leaf blowers I know are really bad. Yeah.
If we want to double up on conspiracies, my targeted ads have all been about how scented candles lit in the homes are the easiest way to totally destroy the air quality in your home. And I find that rude that they're putting these on my feed right before scented candle season.
I feel like we've got a candle lit in our house pretty much at all. Jenna's a huge candle person too.
Yeah, so apparently your air quality is terrible, you're killing your kids, like all these things, et cetera, is what's being shoved down my throat right now.
Let me see if I can quickly dig up stats about how
leaf blowers
environment. Yeah, let's see. The report noted that these tools were responsible for emitting more than 20 million pounds of benzene, a carcinogen, into the air. The equipment also produced more than 30 million tons of carbon dioxide and nearly 19,000 tons. This is not the full thing. I want to see if I can pull up that F250 stat. Again, this is from the internet, so take it with a grain of salt. But oh, here we go. Sorry for the dead air, but this is interesting. A 2011 study comparing a consumer-grade leaf blower to a Ford F-150 Raptor pickup truck found that the leaf blower emitted 23 times the amount of carbon monoxide as the truck, double the amount of nitrous oxide, and nearly 300 times the amount of hydrocarbons. Another study found that polluting from operating a commercial leaf blower for 1 hour was equivalent to driving 1,100 miles in a 2017 Toyota Camry. So maybe some of the stats were mixed up there. That's approximately 16 hours of driving or a road trip from Los Angeles to Denver.
Wow.
Yeah, so not good.
So that's how we fix everything.
Yeah.
We just ban leaf blowers.
Yeah. Forget not eating meat. Let's get rid of leaf blowers.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, so that's bad. Let's go to today's question of the day. I don't know if this is a you or if this is a Mara or a Rachel, but I like this question.
Yes.
I have some much further insight in the last few years. The question is, what's something you didn't realize was going to consume so much of your time as an adult?
You answer first.
Okay. This is so cliche, but I have to mention it because I'm going through it, and I'm sure it's going to get worse before it gets better. But the amount of time it takes to just get out of the house to do anything with 3 kids is fucking outrageous. And again, 2 of them are babies, so like they don't get to fight back. The toddler, Leo, is a little bit more challenging because he has opinions and often contrarian opinions, but you have to get the kids dressed. You have to pack the diaper bags. You have to get the strollers into the vehicle, multiple strollers for us now. You have to get the bottles. There's snacks to keep the toddler entertained, portable potties now that we're doing potty training. Like legitimately to get out of the house, if you're doing it efficiently, it's going to take you a minimum of 30 minutes. And then like by the time you get in the car, you're already fucking stressed out and wiped out, which is why we don't do much nowadays. It's so much easier just to not do things.
Yeah, that's worrying for me because I managing only myself.
Yeah,
I
that
find
doesn't
it
even
very
include
hard.
Yeah, the things you have to do for yourself.
But just like I'm listening to our interview and I'm thinking this sounds great in theory, but it's war with myself, mental warfare to get myself to go to the grocery store. Yeah. And especially with it getting colder, I'm falling into that like seasonal depression, like don't want to leave home, cozy on the couch phase.
Yep.
That is hard enough for just me, let alone me plus toddlers.
Yeah. You rally, you rise up to the circumstances to get things done, but the threshold for the things that we're willing to do it's a pretty high hurdle to clear. So, it is very time consuming, and doing anything is almost impossible.
Yeah. Mine is going to sound, I don't remember what it was when I sent this. There was something that I sent this with, but the one that I'm going to go with is probably going to sound just like whiny and complainy, but work. Like going to work, like the 8 hours of your day that you're most awake and you have the most energy, that the sun is out, just having to spend all that time doing something for someone else just so that you can like make an income to do the basic things in life. I understand the concept of it and I get that it makes sense and there's a point to it, but it's like I was sitting at home the other day and I was like, this sucks. Like every day you're just waking up and spending most of your awake hours doing something for someone else, and there's no summer break anymore. That was a great part about school, was at least you had summer break and you could look forward to that. Now, there's no big breaks. You don't get that big reset unless you leave a job and have that time between them, in which case then you have to worry because you don't have the funds to support yourself. And it's just, the fact that there's so many years out of the total years you get where you have to spend the majority of your sunlight hours doing things for other people, so just so that you can put food on the table. I knew it was coming when I was growing up. Like, they do warn you it's coming.
Yeah.
After a while being in it, it's not great.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a shout out to fire and that whole community. And if you're young and you're listening to this, start as early as possible, because that's the way that you escape, is the financial freedom to just be like, blaze double middles to your employer.
Yes, F you money. I will say I wish I knew more about like financial literacy stuff in my early 20s instead of being the mindset of I will figure it out when I turn 30.
Totally.
Because I did. I read many books at 30 to fulfill that prophecy to myself. And then learning about compound interest, you're like, wow.
Yeah.
If I had just done a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Moral of the story is, if you can nestle away at least 10% at any age in life, the compound interest makes a big difference.
Yeah. So working, I knew, but I didn't realize.
Yeah. I feel like this has been a hot topic. I don't know about TikTok, but the TikTok videos have been funneling into my world on X, Twitter. That there've been a couple of popular TikTok videos on this exact subject that you're talking about typically like young females just complaining about the 9-to-5 environment. Like, they're fresh out of school and they're horribly frustrated. Like, this is their first taste of real life and just incredibly discouraged. And the responses to it are interesting, because you get the people that are like, suck it up, buttercup, this is the real world, blah, 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 blah. And then you get a lot of people being like, this system's kind of fucked. Like, it sucks that you're stuck in this 40 to 50 to 60 hours per week environment, and then like you still can't afford to buy a house. Like, you can't even do the things that were part of the normal American dream even 20 years ago. Like, maybe we needed to reevaluate some things. There
was one I saw the other day that was saying, it was something like, it wasn't talking about the 4-day work week, but I'm going to use that as the example. But them being like, oh, you can never just have the whole society do a 4-day work week. It would never work. And then it cuts to someone, and they, because it's daylight savings, they were like, we just literally decided that 3 a.m. was 2 a.m. and everyone went with it.
Yeah.
Like, this is all made up.
Yeah.
All of this is made up.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a couple of takeaways is, save as much as you can as early as you can, which I know is easier said than done, but the more you can live beneath your means, whether it's to spend money on a thru-hike or to retirement or a combination. And the other is just like, do what you can to find something that you're passionate about, because you're going to have to work a shit ton, and the more time that you can dedicate to something that you don't loathe will make the time better served.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's fun. Let's go to, this is somewhat of a new segment, reoccurring now. This is called Plug Me. I think Plug Me is what we stuck with.
Yes.
One is former guest of the podcast and renowned trail angel and author Barney Scoutman. He's on episodes 30 and 77. He'll be coming to Carson Theater in Boulder, Colorado, doing a talk on his book. Why don't I have the title of the book? Oh, Journey North, the Pacific Crest Trail. Scout's awesome book. Whether you've read the book, you're interested in the book, you want to learn more about the life of trail angeling or Scout's incredible journey from, what year was this? It was one of the high snow years, because the book ends with them getting trapped in that hellacious snowstorm. I think it was the same year that, what's his face?
I think it was 2016, because I feel like it was the year before I hiked, but I don't, I could just be making that up.
Yeah. Anyways, highly encourage you to go check out this talk if you're hearing this on time. Again, that's at Carson Theater in Boulder on December 5th, starting at 7 p.m. And also, former guest of the podcast, Shayla Kiddo Paradis, has a new book she sent to us. Shout out to Shayla. Thank you for sending this. It is Footprint of a Heart. I think she had mentioned that she was writing it on her appearance. I don't remember what episode number that was. I'm going to look it up quickly.
It says Footprint of a Heart, 18,000 miles of stillness that moves.
Episode 159.
Should I read the back cover?
Yeah.
Imagine having your needs reduced to the things you can't live without: food, water, and shelter. In Footprint of a Heart, Shayla Paradis, how do I say her last name?
I remember,
Paradis?
I think it was close to Paradise.
Shayla Paradis, whose trail name is Kiddo, ventures off the path of musical theater at age 21 and moves from Manhattan to Montana. Trading tapped shoes for hiking boots, she sculpts a life outdoors as a long-distance hiker. By age 34, she walked over 18,000 miles between 4-month treks known as thru-hikes and thousands of joyful miles running across the land of her dreams, Glacier National Park, all without a smartphone. Kiddo shares the trailside moments of 5 long journeys, including barren deserts, windy ridges, river crossings, and countless peaks, passes, and valleys. Her adventure takes her through swarms of bugs, knee-deep mud, and every kind of precipitation imaginable, all the while navigating threats of rattlesnakes, bears, charging bulls, and one angry mama turkey. Journeys are often more internal than external. As she walks, she learns that counting miles can be self-measurement, can't read today, as dangerous as body image or money. The need to connect is the true north. With an openness taught through the trees, she experiences a fulfillment she never dreamed possible. Trails are no longer a thing to do, they're a place to be.
If you want to whet your appetite on the subject, again, that was episode... What did I just say? I just said it. I lost it.
I didn't listen to you.
Yeah. It was July of 2022. But we talk in depth about her doing the thru-hikes without a smartphone, which Shayla's about our age. I think she's younger than I am. So to do that without a smartphone is actually pretty remarkable.
We also talk about Journeys North on one of Scout's episodes, too,
Yep.
if you want a taste of that. But Plug Me is a fun segment. This one you can only get on if you've been a past guest.
That's right.
And it is you keeping us in the loop with what you've been up to lately. So if you have been a past guest and you're hearing this, or you think of someone who would make a great guest and you want to get them on this list, we just like to keep up with them and see what they're up to.
For sure. Okay, let's go to the Triple Crown. I'm very excited for this one.
I know you are.
I'm actually going to limit my honorable mentions because I think that there's an outside chance that this could be a repeat eventually because there's so many good ones. And, okay, it's the Triple Crown of jingles, taglines, and mottos. Okay. And I was so flooded with ideas for this one that I'm actually just going to do jingles.
Okay.
You can open any of those avenues.
I don't think I'm as good of a thinker as you, but I've got some.
Well, this was inspired. I'll go with the first one because this is what inspired me for the Triple Crown was the maybe she's born with it. Maybe it's Maybelline.
Ooh, okay.
I don't know why, but that has always stuck with me. And I've actually seen that referenced. Somebody wrote a title on the Trek recently saying like maybe she's born with it. Maybe it's Giardia or something like that. And it shows like a picture of her gut, which she looks like she's incredibly skinny because she had just shit her brains out and vomited quite a bit as well. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Mine have a very insurance-y feel to them. The first one is "We are farmers." Bum ba dum bum 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 bum. That one sometimes just pops in my head, like as a response to something.
It is interesting how these things stick with us, and I'd like to believe that it has no influence over my purchase decision. I can say that I've never purchased anything by Maybelline. Obviously, I'm probably not their target audience, but I have a couple of other examples here from businesses that I've never given money to. Not any opposition. It's just like, I know your tagline or I know your jingle, but I don't frequent your business.
Yeah. So the farmers one, that one pops in my head a lot.
That's a good one.
And then the other one that pops in my head a lot is Liberty Mutual for 2 reasons.
You do love the insurance.
A, the Liberty.
Mm-hmm.
That one is hard to get out of your head.
Yeah.
But I also really like when they're like, Liberty. That part is really funny to me.
It is fun when they spin off and they are making fun of their own stuff, but that's a good one. My next one, this is probably my favorite, but it wasn't the first thing to come to mind, is Chili's baby back ribs, Chili's baby back ribs, barbecue sauce.
The baby back.
Yeah, it's so good. It's the people who write these jingles must be the richest people on earth because legitimately it's like audible crack. Once you hear it, it just sticks with you for so long.
Or it could be like Netflix and they get no royalties. Very sad.
And do we have to pay them for?
I don't know. I just wanted to toss that in there.
I want one baby back. Isn't that's a scene in Austin Powers too? Okay, my last one, and I'm not going to do honorable mentions because I have a lot. Maybe I will. I have a few to choose from.
Just don't take mine. I only have 3.
This is a shout out to today's guest. Is ba-da-ba-ba-ba, loving it.
Okay, that's not mine.
McDonald's.
I like that. Basic.
Very basic.
Very basic.
Yeah.
Mine, I think, is going to go more into like taglines and mottos than jingles for my last one. But I love Progressive's thing they've been doing recently. I told you
You
it's
love
all insurance. The young homeowners turning into their parents.
Oh yeah, sure.
Those
Which category does this fall under?
Like a tagline or a motto, like the
Okay.
for young homeowners turning into their parents. That's
Yeah.
how they say that,
Yeah.
and then they lead into it.
Yeah.
So I would call it a tagline or a motto. But I feel like I get the excitement when I see one of these commercials come on and I realize they've made a new variation that I haven't seen yet.
Yeah.
I get excited like it's a new episode of a show.
They are very funny.
Yeah.
They are very funny.
And really, really true.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of some of the examples from those commercials.
Blue.
It's like, how do I write a Facebook or something like that? Like just not knowing how technology
In all
works.
caps.
Yeah.
So that looks like you're yelling. Or everyone sees their hair.
Yeah. Okay, I do have 2 honorable mentions.
Okay.
This is old school, but what would you do for a Klondike bar? That's one I've eaten a lot of Klondike bars, so maybe that did get me. I don't know.
Okay.
Are you not familiar with that one?
No, I am. It's distant. It's a distant memory.
That is an old school one.
I liked the Dare anti-drugs commercial that they once had with like the deflated people, where the tagline of it was like, I don't smoke drugs, I smoke kids like you on the b-ball court. There was that like variation of these commercials they were running for a time, and those ones were really funny.
Not familiar with that one. My last honorable mention is, and I don't enjoy their product at all, even though I consume the genre in great quantities, is the best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup. Yeah, Folgers gross coffee, but that's a good jingle. It's a good jingle.
I don't even know if they'll still have this online, but there is a Geico commercial. Again, insurance. That's my niche.
Apparently.
There's a Geico commercial from when I was young that I thought was the funniest thing. It was
the
like
cavemen?
No, it was a reenactment of a soap opera, and this girl was really upset with the guy, and he was like, I've got something important to tell you. And she was like, you're leaving Jessica? And he's like, no, I just saved a bunch of money on my car insurance by switching to Geico. And she starts crying, and you just see him, it cuts to him, and he goes, I saved. I thought that meant something to you.
That was definitely a very clever marketing campaign, because I've seen that spun off in so many, like, inappropriate is the wrong word, non-obvious ways. Yeah, it's become a meme of sorts.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what you're talking about, but I really like that commercial.
One that I was going to reference, but it's outside of my jingles lane that I'm in right now, is beef. It's what's for dinner. You've heard that one?
Yes.
You're very excited about this.
No, I thought of something different that I like.
Shout out to the editor of our podcast, because his dad is the one who coined that.
Really?
He used to be some big dick for an advertising agent. Polly, correct me if I'm wrong on this.
Does your dad have a big dick?
Yeah. But he was like one of the biggest advertising people in the history of advertising, basically. Like a Don Draper type. And that was one of his taglines.
I actually want to bump one of mine off my list for the one that I just thought of, which is my bologna has a first name. It's O-S-C-A-R.
Oscar Mayer, yeah.
My bologna has a second name. It's M-A-Y-E-R. I like to eat it every day. And if you ask me why I say, because Oscar Mayer has a way with B-O-L-O-G-N-A.
Wow. That's impressive.
I can spell bologna.
So the Oscar Mayer wiener job, it apparently is like a very highly coveted, insanely competitive job to get, because I met one of the people that had that in Wisconsin, and I forget the details of it, but I remember there was like tens of thousands of applicants, and he got it. And he just spent the entire summer driving around the Oscar Wiener mobile.
One of my things that I love that I think is fun is my Venmo picture. I don't know how to make it bigger, but I'm wearing the Oscar Mayer because it's mainly food that I Venmo for. But it's me in front of the Oscar Mayer truck dressed as a hot dog, and it always makes me laugh when I open Venmo.
This is from NewJersey.com. In previous years, less than 1% of applicants were selected as part of the one-year fellowship. I can get more details on this, but yeah, very competitive.
What about the dog ticks commercial where it was, hello mother, hello father, fleas, ticks, mosquitoes, really bother. Thanks for the package, and that's why I'm writing. Canine Advantix really stops all the biting. That's the brand.
Impressive. That's impressive.
I'm a jingle girl.
What's the Empire jingle? That 1-800 Empire.
Today.
Could probably do this for another hour.
Yeah.
Okay.
January Patreon.
Yeah,
45
right.
minutes
Just
straight.
Us singing jingles. People would love that.
Yeah.
Let's go to the 5-star review.
Okay. Tiding me over from the biggest Mick. And that's with an M.
Big Mick energy.
Yeah, big Mick energy on this one. 5 stars. After a couple multi-day backpacking trips with my son in the Cascades and Olympic Peninsula this summer, I stumbled upon this podcast looking for thoughts on paring down the weight I was pack muling. My son is 5 and killing it on trail, but that means I was overpacking for 2 using a kid carrier backpack just in case. What a joy to listen to. It's given voice to a yearning within to get extended periods on trail. As a previous guest opined, I never wake up sad on trail.
That must be Pony.
Yeah, it sounds like him. So my boy and I are section hiking the AZT. When he found out the youngest finisher was 13, he said, I can beat that. The hiking families featured are an inspiration, and when we can't be out there, parentheses life, this podcast keeps reminding me to make it happen, smiley face.
Thank you so much to the biggest Mick. If you guys want to have your review read on this podcast, head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave any number of stars, just not 1, 2, 3, or 4.
I thought of something that I don't know where it would fit, but I think we should say it, which is we picked a winner for the Poop Story contest.
Yes, absolutely.
That we were running, and it was I'm going to find that message that they sent back to Rachel. I've got a screenshot of it. It was a great message, and the Poop Story was about them dropping their smartphone into a privy and it landing on like the cone of a pile of shit, and them finding these tools around them that they had to then dig it out of this privy with. Hilarious story. But she gave us permission to share her email, and we'll have some photos of the incident on our Instagram at Backpacker Radio. But she said, oh my gosh, Rachel, I am so excited. This couldn't have happened at a better time. I had been overwhelmed for the past 2 months taking care of my 90-year-old father with dementia and trying to get him settled into an assisted living home. I haven't been able to do my normal daily runs and hikes. Today I said I need to take a hike, enjoy the quiet and fresh air. While I was hiking, I snickered to myself that I could forget all these problems if only my story would be accepted into the book. How crazy is that? I don't do social media at all, but wanted to share a couple pictures with you. The one picture of my son and I was right before I used the pit toilet, so fresh, excited, and clean. Then there's the one of me walking out of the frame away from the pit, hanging my head in shame. All ends well, though, if you can't tell by the smile on my face climbing over Dick's Pass. Thank you for turning my luck around. So we did pick a winner for the Poop Story contest that ended on the 31st of October, but it doesn't mean we're not going to do another. So if you haven't submitted a story yet, you still can.
Totally. We'll come up with something juicy for people to latch on to. Sticker code. I have an idea.
Yes.
So to play off of the Mediocre Golfers Association, I want people to comment with what sports league they would start.
Oh, yeah, like the Mediocre What's Association?
Yeah, or any adjective that you'd like. But
okay.
Yeah, if you were the commissioner of any sport and you were starting a league, what would it be and why?
I love that.
Cool. Thank you to our Chuck Norris Award winners on Patreon. That is Alex and Misty with Navigators Crafting, Andrew, Austin McDaniel, Austin Ford, Brad and Blair from 13 Adventures, Brent Stenberg, Brian Alsop,
Fables,
Christopher Marshburn, Coach from Marion Outdoors, Dane,
Ish,
Derek Cook, Eric Casper,
The Friendly Ghost,
Greg McDaniel,
bring honor to his name,
Iron Hike Endurance Productions,
Smart,
Liz Seeger, Matt Sukup, Mike Poisel, Patrick Ciencialo, Sawyer Products, Spam, Timothy Hahn,
Solo,
and Tracy Trigger. You can follow us on social media at Backpacker Radio on Instagram and TikTok at Backpacker Pod on X, Facebook.com/Backpacker Radio. You can follow Chaunce.
You can find me on Instagram at Juliana_Chauncey, and you can get my book Hiking from Home, a long-distance hiking guide for family and friends on Amazon.
My books are Appalachian Trials and Pacific Crest Trials. Thanks to Ruth for shouting that out. That was very nice. Her check
you're sending her money.
Definitely.
She was going through the steps you listed.
Yeah, that was definitely unplanned publicity, but thank you for that. Subscribe and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you consume podcasts. We are on YouTube. We have a YouTube page. What's up, YouTube?
Hi, Internet.
If you guys want to watch the podcast, that's the place to do it. And that's it for today's show. Thank you so much for listening, and happy hiking.
Bye.